personal views and opinions expressed by our podcast guests are their own and are not legal advice or official statements by their organizations. Hello, my name is Debbie Reynolds. They call me the Data Diva. This is the Data Diva Talks Privacy podcast, where we discuss data privacy issues with industry leaders around the world with information that businesses need to know now. I have a special guest on the show today, all the way from Japan, Takaya Terakawa. He is the CEO of Technica-Zen KK. Welcome.
Thank you very much. I'm very honored to, and I'm very excited to talk with you, Debbie.
Yeah, this is great. So we got to know each other. We met on a panel that we did together for IAPP in the Philippines. And I loved your point of view, your worldview, your perspective. And I wanted to make sure that you got on the show because I feel like a lot of times when we're talking about privacy regulation, is very European centric, and it doesn't really highlight, in my view, very strong data protection laws and regulations that are in Asia. So, some people, because we talk so much about Europe, people don't even know, that, for example, the Philippines has had data protection regulations for, decades, and as has Japan and, South Korea, so I would love to get your perspective of what's happening in that part of the world. But before we get into that, I would love to have you tell sort of how you got interested in privacy. I think it'll be fascinating for the people to know.
Of course. Yeah. First of all, the meeting we met was really fun. It lasted around 3 hours. You remember? I was talking with Raymond, the previous Philippines commissioner, so we are, just talking about how we can promote Asian privacy, environment more, because as you just mentioned, people always talk about Western concept of privacy, but actually Asian, APAC has a very, very, deep privacy concept and the deep privacy interactions. So we are very happy to, promote that. And thank you very much again for inviting me to this. So speaking of me, so came into this privacy field in 2017. It was just before the GDPR. So I was originally a risk management consultant, so at that time I just started my own company. So I was thinking of what kind of business will be successful for my company, so I tried everything at the time. So I did machinery safety, I did ISO, so suddenly I encountered GDPR. So maybe, Japan is kind of a very, very, closed country, so they are not good at coping with overseas regulations or laws. So that's why when I saw the GDPR, this will be the pain point for Japanese companies. So that's how I came into the privacy. So I studied GDPR through IAPP's training, I leveraged my experience from risk management, I also learned the CIPM, Privacy Management Program, I started doing the consultancy to companies in Japan.
I think it's fascinating to me to see people like you who come into privacy from different areas. So not necessarily law, because I'm a technologist too. So I think that people of all different types of industries can benefit from having some type of foot into privacy. So you've turned that into a successful business. That's great. I want to talk about you. You were talking about you had mentioned you're finishing up a book, and I would love for you to touch base and let us know sort of what this book is about.
Oh, thank you for mentioning about it. And yeah, it's on PIPL, Chinese Personal Information Protection. I went through all the data-related law recently established in China, and interpreted into Japanese, and added some explanations on it. So privacy law, but it's usually so it's closely related to the cybersecurity, and it's closely related to the data strategy. So China has been working on it for 20 years to establish their strategy as a country, and there is a very, very clear focus. So I wanted to highlight that context so that people can understand the Chinese privacy law more deeply. So that's what I did with the book, and that's going to be a very good book, I believe.
I feel like people don't really understand the landscape of data protection in Asia. So I think a lot of times, so when I talk to people, first of all, before the PIPL, they didn't talk about China at all. And they rarely talked about Japan. Occasionally you hear something about South Korea. The Philippines have done a really great job, especially with Raymond, right? They have put out a lot of information to educate the public about, data protection and stuff like that. But for people who don't understand what's going on, what's happening in Asia now, in addition to the PIPL, that maybe people need to understand about data protection in that region?
That's a very good question. So actually, when you say APAC, it's not a one region. So we have separate cultures or separate countries, and we have a different concept of the, world. So there are so many countries over there, and so China, Korea, Japan, everybody is different. So we have doing, many things differently. So it's quite understandable you lose sight of what's going on in Asia Pacific. Actually, I myself don't understand fully about the Asia Pacific, but the fact is, we are trying to modernize the privacy law a lot, because of the this digital world. Digital economy is progressing in Asia, especially most of the Asian countries started using the internet through mobile phone. It's quite different from the context of United States or Europe. Many of them started using a mobile phone, and many more and more information is coming to the cyberspace through the small devices. So that's why. So we are doing more aggressively, focusing on how to manage the data or how to protect people in Asia, and so since this concept is quite new. So we usually look at the GDPR or OECD guidelines or other principles. But so based on that, so we the kind of template, and start creating our own our own privacy laws. So at a glance, it looks like similar to GDPR or some other, laws, but when you see very, very different points for each of law in Asia, that's what's happening in Asia.
Oh, okay, great. Let's see. I wanted to get a feel for kind of the foundation, sort of some fundamentals about data protection or data privacy laws. So, for example, Europe, their privacy is a fundamental human right, right? Mm-hmm. And where in the US is a consumer right. And I feel like the PIPL is more of a consumer right as well. And then I don't know, maybe the Philippines, I feel like they're maybe more of a human right. So what to me, those are very foundational differences. What are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, the point and I agree with that. But in case of Japan or Korea, so yeah, we do talk about the fundamental, rights of people, but so often they are driven by businesses. So when you look at the, Singapore Singapore privacy law, so it's quite business driven, and many of Asian laws are, in my perspective, business driven. So they want to create an environment how to make the business easier for companies inside the country.
And what are your thoughts about, I'm seeing in different countries, and it's been the way that I've known for a long time, right? In China, you know a lot about that since you wrote a book about it. But what do you think about countries putting things in their laws related to data localization? So what is your thought about the reason for why that is?
Okay, so data localization is, in my opinion, is a natural consequences of the data economy, because sometimes the data is critical for defending the nation. So for example, the geolocation information is critical when it comes to military operation. So you need to protect the important infrastructures when it comes to the some abnormal things happening. So people need to countries need to protect those information. So before data is secured inside the nation, and so it was easier for countries to protect information. But nowadays, it's much easier to throw data outside of the country, and the confidential information are easily going out. So I can understand the feeling. So the nations want to secure the data inside the. And in fact, I see that China has a data localization, and Vietnam has a data localization, and India maybe will have a data localization in the future, I believe. And so this kind of tendency is spreading all over the world. And Europe is also, I think, have a tendency to do the data localization by annulling the privacy shield. It's essentially very difficult to send personal information to the United States from Europe now. So it's a kind of a world trend.
Yeah, I think so. It's really interesting. So every country or different countries taking their different approach to it. In India, I just happen to know that this about India, but India's had very strict localization laws for decades around banking. So there's certain banking information that you can't get out of India. And then as technology has grown over the years, they're starting to create more regulation around that. Like certain financial transactions, all parts of a transaction, certain financial transactions have to happen in India. So it can't be servers in other countries and transferring data back. And I know some business people have been really upset about that, but I don't know. I feel like, I don't know, in some ways, I feel like part of it is also economic driver, right? Where some countries, I think, want to keep the jobs in the country, or they want to make sure that they're talking with people or working with people who understand kind of the local customs and what's expected of them. What are your thoughts about that?
Well, I think, data can be accessed from everywhere. So, depending on, whenever you put the, store the data, you can access to it. So I think putting the data locally doesn't make a big difference for, running business, in my opinion. But in Japan, so speaking of the data localization, in Japan, we had a very interesting case last year. So one communication company called Line outsourced the data analysis in China with Chinese company, and the PPC, the Japanese Supervisory Authority, warned about it. The PPC gave an instruction to the communication company, because they outsourced the personal information processing to a Chinese company without good security measurement. So this is happening. So I think this is more likely, governmental action, and the, more, businesses want to spread the data because sometimes it is more cost efficient, and the, more beneficial for the companies from time to time. But it is government, in my opinion, who try to restrict the storage of data outside of the country.
Some ways about people when they do think about doing data localization, to me, it somehow seems to be related to people thinking if I keep it local, it's safer in some way. And I'm not sure. I'm not sure.
Like I'm sure, data is data, you can move everywhere.
Yeah, I don't think that localization solves that. I don't think it makes it less or more safe as a result of that. But maybe that harkens back to kind of in the past, the way, like say data that, let's say you had paper or physical objects, right, that you didn't move, you put in a locked room or something. So maybe localization is like a digital locked room in a way around that.
Exactly. Yeah. But at least for government, they can access to the data center directory and do some investigation in detail at the site. So maybe that's a benefit for the government, in my feeling.
Yeah. So one thing that I'm noticing in places like, Australia, China, India, some of their laws around data protection, if businesses run afoul, some of these laws have criminal penalties. So that's something that we're not yet seeing in the US or Europe. Obviously, there are a lot of cases being filed and things going to court and stuff like that. But what are your thoughts about the genesis of this, like penalties for your data protection officer? If you do something wrong, you may end up with a criminal penalty or something.
Yeah, actually, Japan also has a criminal penalty, and did wrongdoing, fined or sometimes imprisoned. And it's a quite Asian way to regulate people. So yeah, you recognized me. Actually, Asian countries has commonly have a crime condition with the privacy law. It's very interesting to find now. But I don't know. Maybe that's a culture of Asian
Yeah.
countries.
Yeah, maybe. Because I saw a case, this was in China actually, many years ago, where a woman, she was college, she wanted to go to college and she had
Yeah,
saved her
yeah,
money. You remember this case, right?
yeah. I know that.
She had saved her money to pay for college, and she was going to transfer the money, and she got an email and they told her to send it to a different account. And it was actually a cyber criminal that wiped out her account, and she was so grieving about this whole thing that she passed away. I think like 3 days later she died, and
Yeah.
the cyber criminals who did this, they went to jail for murder, right?
Yes, yeah, that's a quite a big action. That's a big news, and yeah, it was impressive to see that. But yeah, at that time, China didn't have a law for the data protection, and also their cybersecurity law was weak. So yeah, that time gone on, the police of the China moved to regulate that incident because it was a big issue on the cyberspace in China, and many people were focusing on the news, and so the government had to work on it, and the easiest way for them, in my opinion, was using police to regulate it.
Yeah. Well, that to me, I thought it was interesting because when you mishandle data of people, you can harm them, right? And so different countries have different notions of what harm is, right? So if they had physically, done something to her, I think most all, countries have laws around that. But if the harm is, in this way is very different, right? So they said, this is the direct, as a result of this crime, this person is now deceased, and we think that you are responsible. So then there's a criminal penalty. So I thought this was interesting because I think, there is harm, it's grievous harm that can happen to people when their data is misused.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So data misuse usually creates a privacy harm, and we need to remember about it because we often talk about privacy is important, or the personal information must be protected, but we often forget why it is important, or why we should protect it. And yeah, I often talk to my clients about the consequences of the data breach, or so privacy harms, and so I always ask them, if this happens, are you happy? If this happens to your family or your brothers or your wife or the children, so can you take it or not? And then so they started thinking seriously. So yeah, it's really important to think of the privacy harm. Yeah, I totally agree with you.
Yeah, that's fascinating. Tell me what's happening in technology now or going forward that concerns you most as it relates to privacy?
Well, in Japan, so the facial recognition is still popular in Japan, and the police is actively using, and the government. Uh, as you may know, Japan is a little behind for the digitalization, and the Japanese government wants to promote digitalization of the economy a lot, and my biggest concern with Japanese situation right now is Japanese government recently released that saying that they are going to collect all the educational data of the people in Japan, and they track it for the entire life so that they can provide the best learning opportunities to the people in Japan. But I said, what?
Yeah.
It's that's none of your business, first of all. And can we really trust the government in the way they handle our data?
Right.
Yeah, it's really, really scary, decision of the government these days.
Yeah. Wow. Oh my goodness. I had never heard of that. That is scary. I mean, especially you're younger, you're younger, Lord knows what you do, back then. And you don't want someone to hold something against you that you did, especially when you're a younger age. And
Yeah,
then
I agree.
then too, I feel like when you get so much data, you may see patterns of things that aren't true or aren't right. That people
Yeah,
may make a inference about, say, oh well, because this person took this class, we think they're going to be a criminal, so we're not going to send them to a good school, or they can't, get this job because that's what the data told us. So I'm concerned about that as well. Um,
yeah. Yeah,
yeah,
that's a biggest issue with the this digital world and the profiling. We provide so much data to somebody, and somebody creates a profile, and the another guy will use it to decide something, and we never know what's going on over there, and somehow our future is decided by somebody we don't know. That's really, really scary thing, isn't it?
well, it is. I don't know. I like technology, but I don't like everything people try with technology. But I
Mm.
also think people have a misunderstanding. I think they think that technology is perfect. So
Yeah.
we aren't perfect as humans. So what makes you think that technology is perfect and it's going to come up with a perfect result? So in a way, we have a blind spot. We think, okay, computers are smarter than me just because it can do things faster than I can, but it can't make judgments, right? Shouldn't
Yes,
be.
exactly, exactly. Yeah, and yeah, technology is always, it's only a tool, so we need to use it. We should not be used by the technology.
Right. Yeah. Like I think to me that the analogy that I see that we're doing that's not good is like there was a case in the US where someone was driving a Tesla car and they decided to get out of the driver's seat and get into the passenger seat. And then the car ran into a tree and it killed the people who were in the car. And I
Mm.
feel like we, unfortunately, some people abdicate our human responsibility and judgment to technology. So, like, to me, it's like, okay, you should not get out of the driver's seat of a car. That is ridiculous.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, but I think, I don't think stop using technology is a wise direction, and we need to use the technology because it's really beneficial to our society, and it advances our world. But so at the same time, so we need to, be very careful about what the consequences of the usage of the technology. So, it's always a kind of a communication between the technology or, human society and where we want to go. So, yeah, the point is, not criticizing the technology, but the how we can create better world using the new technologies. That's a point in my understanding.
Right, exactly. So, like, I give the example, you can use a brick to build a house, or you
Mm.
can use a brick and hit someone with it and hurt them, right? But you don't outlaw bricks. You just stop throwing bricks at people. So, to me,
Yeah.
technology is that way, right? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I always remember, when the cars first appeared, the doctor said if people run more than 50 kilometers per hour, people will die. But uh, we are still alive, and it's a kind of a fear to something new. So we always have fears to new things that appear in the world, and we sometimes overreact it. So it's certainly useful, and thanks to the cars, so we can expand our movement, and we can go around many places, and so it expanded our economy indeed. So uh, so that's my point. So we need to use it, but we need to use it wisely. So we need to make it future proofing. So the discussion, so the privacy professionals are doing a lot of privacy assessment, or doing a lot of discussions all around the world. But what we are doing is, I think we are trying to figure out where is a good balancing point in the society.
Yeah, and I think, I'm concerned about, regulations being passed that are too
Strict.
Well, about technology. So regulations that are being passed that they're too specific to technology. So like, there's all this cookie lawsuits happening in Europe. And by the time all this stuff is done, cookies won't even exist. Like, they, cookies were, in my view, a mode of transportation. Like they were the things that people did with cookies can be done in other ways. So I feel like we should be talking about more of the harm, if technology companies do certain things, it could possibly harm the human, right? So if you flip it around and not talk about the technology so specifically and talk about the harm that can happen, I think that you have better laws that are more future proof, right? Things that don't age out, things that don't, the people can't play tricks around, so after cookies, maybe we'll have biscuits or something, or crackers, I don't know.
So do you think, criminal prosecution will work for European countries or United States?
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. I don't know. That's a good question. In the United States, people, for some reason, people who have means seem to be able to get away with lots of things. So, I would be concerned that it would criminalize things for people who didn't have kind of the money to be able to fight their way out of stuff. That digital divide concerns me a lot. But I think what has happened in the U.S. that I think will happen more is that we have a law in Illinois called the Biometric Information Privacy Act, and it's currently like the most stringent like biometric law right now. And so that law, Facebook settled a case in 2020 for $650 million from that law from that state. And as a result of that, we're starting to see other states thinking, well, I want $650 million. And Facebook decided they're not going to do this facial tagging anymore, and probably because of this, right? So to me, that was a good thing. It's a good thing because, if that type of penalty can deter companies from using data in a way that people aren't okay with, then yeah. So, and if criminal penalties, if that's necessary, yes. I think because it is, I mean, again, it's not just because you didn't physically touch someone or whatever, doesn't mean that you didn't harm them. So I would love to see more definition around harm to individuals.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's really important to, figure out what privacy harms exist in the world. So we we do have some concepts, but so maybe we can, clarify it more. Yeah, I totally agree with you.
If it were the world according to Takaya and we did everything that you said, what would be your wish for privacy or data protection anywhere in the world, whether it be regulation or technology or anything about humans? What are your thoughts?
Wow, that's a very deep question. Okay. well, well, I think, the world is quite similar to as is, but a little easier in the regulation side. So we maybe I will allow sending data from continent to continent, from Japan to US, Japan to EU, or everywhere. But at least so I want the business operators, controllers, or those who are handling personal information will be more responsible for what they are doing. So maybe I will promote the awareness of the privacy harm, or why privacy is important to the society, and try to create a more mutual understanding in the world.
Oh, wow. I love that. I think that's what we need. We need more mutual understanding. I think a lot of times we focus so much on how we're different and not enough about how we're the same. So we're all dealing with the same problems. We may come up with different solutions, but I would love to see some kind of fundamental principles that we can agree about, internationally or globally. Let's say, hacking is bad, or, cybercrime is bad,
Yeah. Yes, actually, after all, we are all human. So
Right.
Yeah, we need to be human all the time, all over the world.
That's right. That's right. Excellent. Well, thank you so much. This was great. Oh my goodness. We have to find other ways that we can collaborate together. This is wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I really enjoyed the conversation very much. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. I'll talk to you soon.
Okay.